everyone. Portia Taylor coming from Prison from the Inside Out, Inc. Today we are having our first Oklahoma story. It's the story of Donnino Brown. We have co-host Purpose on board. You want to say hey to the people, Purpose?
Hey, how's it going?
We also have Mary Moreland, who is the wife of Donnino. And then we have Donnino himself, who will eventually come on and fill us in on his story himself. So I learned about this story from a good friend of mine. She introduced me to a petition that is circulating, which will be added into the comments after you guys listen to his story and learn the details of how he became incarcerated. If it has touched you the same way that it touched me, please go and sign the petition and offer any support that you may have. What caught my attention about his petition that made it stand out from others is that the letter that was written inside of his petition came from the psychologist who worked his case at the time that his crime was committed. And the letter was very touching. So I asked his wife, Mary Moreland, to read this letter so you all can understand why I took interest in learning more about Donnino's story. So Mary, if you can, please read the letter.
Absolutely. It's titled Lost Without Hope. Children in prison abused, given life without parole, are lost without hope. Donnino Moreland, a child sent to prison with life without parole, abused, responded, killed. The legal system has done a lynching. Write and express your reviews on this end, and I will respond. Battered minors given life without parole. Lynching takes many forms, including judicial indifferences and failure to accept or understand the effects of beatings over a prolonged period, especially in blacks. Donnino Moreland, 1 week into his 16th year, had been terrorized and beaten by his father, all indifferently witnessed by his mother as he screamed for 11 of those years remembered. Finally, he snapped after a beating and shot violently into a room at his father. His mother, sitting behind his father, was killed as well as his father. Just before the breakdown, as he ascended the stairs, his father grabbed him, cursed him, and threw him under the dining room table, kicked him, and threatened him with more. He lay there sobbing when he could. He went upstairs terrified, tears streaming down his cheeks. He looked into the mirror and saw the monster with changing faces. He got his father's pistol and struggled with the madness engulfing him. He went downstairs and fired without looking into the room and fled. He never saw his parents after they were shot and did not know until the next day that his mother had been hit as well as his father. Both were dead. He was lynched by his lawyer, who refused to mount a defense. Although he was given names of those who knew about the abuse, his lawyer told this terrified boy that he would be lynched by the town if he went to trial. His father had told him the father could kill him and get away with it, as no one would give a damn about a dead nigger. When I made an effort at the sentencing to make the judge aware of the abuse and irrational state of this boy, he was at the time of the shooting. His lawyer, Stephen Jones, stopped me and did not let me continue to testify, so the judge would know about Donnino's mental state. This was a legal lynching that goes unnoticed. I am a psychiatrist who testified at his sentencing but was not allowed to finish my statement about the battered state at the time of the shooting, a lynching. He was lynched by the district attorney, who made no effort to find out the facts about his case. 90% of the children who killed their parents have been abused. She made a trumped up efforts to demonstrate that he was a violent person, although he had absolutely no record of violence. He got one girl, she got one girl to say he had a bad temper when they played basketball in the yard. A district attorney is mandated to seek justice, not conviction. She should have known better again and again. She should have known better. She participated in this black boy's legal lynching. The judge lynched the boy as well. He had heard enough information to know that this was not a first degree murder, although he accepted that as a plea. The boy was barely 16, terrified, and had no one to turn to for advice except for the lynching lawyer and the judge that should have protected him. He went along with the lynching. The judge asked me no questions during the brief time I was on the stand at the sentencing. He was indifferent to the facts, the lynching continued. The judges assigned this battered child to life without parole, a legal lynching if ever there was one. I am the psychiatrist who asked the lawyer to let Donnino tell his story at his sentencing. This was refused. Donnino had been terrorized into pleading guilty 2 months before I was asked to evaluate him. He was never allowed to take the stand in his own defense. When pushed to explain this, the lynching lawyer said he could get the death penalty if he went to trial. This is a falsehood perpetrated even on the papers. Donnino signed when he pled guilty. The district attorney had never filed a bill of particulars. This action is necessary to ask for the death penalty. She never had the intention of doing that. She was satisfied to destroy his spirit through life without hope in prison. 2 years after he was sent to McAllister, the maximum security prison for hardened criminals, he contacted me by letter. I told him if he ever needed anything to let me know. We have continued to be in close touch. Now he is part of our family. My wife and I are heart and soul his grandparents. My daughters are his aunts, although I like to call him brother. We help him emotionally and financially. I have financially supported his 2 most recent appeals. Recently, a judge in Enid, Oklahoma, refused to even hear the appeal, saying the legal issues had already been decided, and the sentence did not outrage the science. This is another legal lynching using legal niceties to continue to crime of the legal judicial system. No other nation in the Western world allows children to be sent to the prison for life of their crime. This practice is an outrage against us all. We are all the sinners if this is allowed to stand. The last judge was just another lynching judge who probably believes he can stand on legal technicalities and before the justice. A liar to himself. We need your outrage to help this boy who is lost without hope deep into the prison system. Written by John Smith.
Thank you, Mary.
You're welcome.
So it's not often that, in this field, if you are a family member, a loved one of someone incarcerated, or just an advocate, even if you're someone who just floats around social media or the internet, you see petitions floating around, change.org, and these petitions are a lot of the time asking for help for men and women who are incarcerated or feel like they've been excessively sentenced, wrongful convictions, things of that such nature. But it's not often that you run across one of these petitions and the narrative of the petition is written by the medical professional that worked the case, and then that same medical professional was so um, compelled by what happened during the case that he formed a permanent bond with the young man, and that is lasting to this day. How many years later is it since that letter has been written?
That letter was wrote in 2007.
Okay, so
So what? 13 years.
Mm-hmm. Long lasting bond. So Donnino is joining us on the call today. As with any of our other interviews, if the person who's incarcerated, whose story it is that we're talking about, is on the line, we give them the floor and allow them to tell their story. So that's what we're going to do now. Donnino, you have the floor. You can go ahead and tell your story.
All right, I'm Donnino Moreland. I'm 40 years old. I've been incarcerated for 26 years. As far as the letter, yes, he was a psychiatrist that was on my case, who ended up becoming more like a father to me than anything else. His wife, who I call mom, and my sisters still come up here usually about once a month. But we became close because at that time, you know, when you're a juvenile, it's the hardest thing in the world to trust anybody. Like, they tell you to trust your adults. They tell you to trust the people that are in power over you. And I did that, which led me to the position that I'm in now. And throughout my whole life, you know, growing up from a kid, I was born in Texas. My dad ended up getting a job offer to come to Oklahoma, and that's how we ended up in Oklahoma. But the very first time I can ever remember feeling abuse, or the moment that stuck in my head, was a moment that my sister had run away from. She didn't run away from home, I should say. She was younger, you know, and she had missed the bus, and her and my cousin had grouped together, and I guess was dodging stuff. They were coming home, but they were doing what little girls do. Of course, I was a kid, and I wanted to see my sister get in trouble. So we had drove around Texas, Jacksonville, Texas. We drove around for maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes until we found her. Well, I actually seen her. Of course, I took it upon myself to point her out. And my dad took my cousin home, took my sister home, and he told my sister that I will whoop you every 10 minutes until you go to sleep. So as a kid with an older sister, I kind of found this amusing. I laughed until I realized that he was serious. You know, the first couple of times he hit her with a old wooden and plastic hockey stick that kids used to play hockey, like in a living room or outside. And he continued to do this from about 5:30 to probably 9 o'clock at night. That was the first moment I'd ever told myself that I would never tell my sister again. Another moment that I truly remember is we had first moved to England, and I was sitting in class, and I remember my father had told me to take out the trash. And while I'm in school now, I'm probably 2 blocks away from where I live. So I asked the teacher for a hall pass to go to the bathroom. She gave me a hall pass. So I struck out, ran home, picked the trash out, threw it in an apartment complex behind our house. And I go back to school thinking I made it. Well, I didn't. The teacher seen me coming across the parking lot. And as you can imagine, she called my father. So I got whooped. Not for the trash, which I was trying to avoid, but for running across the parking lot and skipping school in the middle of school. So my childhood basically has been like that. My mother loved my father with a love that I've never seen before, with a love that's been unmatched. And it was almost like he couldn't do no wrong. And I never understood it, you know. She would never really protect us. She would allow him to do whatever he wanted to do. And at times she would laugh at us. Now, you know, we were kids. Not to say that we were perfect, like we didn't get in trouble. You know, I would stay out late. I would do other things. But I could never fathom why my parents wasn't like my friends' parents. You know, I don't remember really being hugged. I don't remember ever being told good job. Now, as far as my family, don't get it wrong, they really took care of me. When it comes to financial or materialistic things, absolutely, I was a spoiled kid in that sense. But when it came to emotional support or love, I never had it. You know, and it's hard to explain to people. Like, I remember at the age of 11 years old, whoopings didn't hurt anymore. You know, and I remember my dad just hit me. He's got this switch and he just hit me and hit me and hit me and hit me. And my back is roughed up. And he was like, oh, you became a man. You ain't going to cry no more. I see you. You're not going to cry no more. And he was like, I'm proud of you. You're a man now. And so that was one of the greatest things I felt. Like at that moment, at least won a little bit of his affection. You know, but after that, he went to hands. So I became a man. So now he can hit me with his hands or with anything that was around. But it wasn't the pain of the whooping, it was the pain of the rejection that got me. And over the years, I've talked to a lot of people, you know, and they'll be like, well, did you never try to get away? Did you never try? I said, multiple times I had tried. You can contact and have people come in, and back then, DHS and counselors would just literally go to the person and ask, hey, your kid said you're doing this. You know, he was highly in the community. He was, you know, over the NAACP, you know, it was a teacher. So a lot of times he would say, oh, no, I got a little rough with him. And they was like, okay, well, kind of watch it and put me right back in the house.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt you.
No one ever.
So you did at times tell other adults what was happening?
Absolutely. My sister had literally went to school one day and had webs all on the back of her leg. I guess she wore shorts. And so the teacher seen it and they asked, you know, and at first she was like, oh, I don't know how I got him. I think I got him sitting down. And finally the truth came out and they told him not to hit her so hard. Like there's a difference between spanking and there's a difference between abuse. And they were like, you're leaving reps, which means you're hitting harder than spanking. Nothing ever came of it. I tried to run away, got caught, walked back to my parents, and got punished for trying to run away. What does a kid run to? I was 12 and a half years old. Where do I run to? I have no money. I'm a child. The first thing anybody's going to do when they see a child is call that child's parent.
Right.
You know, even if I had no basis.
Go ahead.
I want to. What was the motive? What did they say the motive was for the killing?
They said I was a spoiled kid.
And how long ago was this? What year did it happen?
94.
So this around the time when the Menendez brothers and all that kind of stuff had been going on.
Yeah.
So he was pretty much caught the back end and the backlash of what went on with that, right? This is totally different. I mean, a 16-year-old kid versus what the Melendez, brothers had going on. I mean, not trying to discount whatever abuse they may have suffered, but in these type of situations, like I told Portia before, I mean, child killing parents, it's not something you're doing for some type of clout or trying to impress your friends or a girl look tough or anything like that. So typically what a person will want to do is look at the underlying causes. You know what I'm saying? What happened? Why did this, what caused this person to snap like this?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? But clearly this was a situation they did not want to know any of that.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? You had all this stuff going on dealing with the Menendez brothers at that time, and here it is, he out in the racist South. Apparently these people really didn't care about the person. You get what I'm saying? All it was the life was taken, and we can get rid of it. You get what I'm saying? We don't want the press, we don't want the media, we don't want this, we don't even want to know what happened. We don't even care. You get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And here it is, you have a psychologist, a professional, somebody, an expert in this field, coming to lay down the dynamics and the background, of how an individual could be pushed to this point, and they didn't even want to hear it.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? They didn't even want to hear that. So, I mean, obviously, this was a situation where they didn't care about this young man, what he'd been through. Okay, in a typical situation, you would expect an adult person to find recourse either in talking with somebody, going out running, telling somebody, all these things. Like you said, as a kid, you don't even, there's a trust wedge. You get what I'm saying? There's a barrier between, the generational gap. There's a wedge between trusting somebody who's older than you. You get what I'm saying? Because the person that's older than you usually always chastising and correcting your behavior.
Correct.
You get what I'm saying? So in that, sometimes there's a fear that you can go somewhere. So I mean, he did it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, applaud. I mean, a whole lot of credit goes to him for doing it. But even if he didn't, I mean, it's like, so what? You want to get to the bottom line, as to what happened. And most people in these situations know that there's usually some form of abuse. There's something that happened.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? That was not supposed to happen, and usually over a long period of time. But here it is. They just threw it out and tossed him in the political wastebasket, and this man had to, unfortunately lose his life as well.
So we can see that early on, your story has sparked some reaction.
Yeah, but it's very hard. Like you said, you literally, we hear of cases like this, but you literally, as a child, that's why they come with certain rules. Like, you cannot interview a child without having a legal guardian there. Well, in my case, they got around it because they said the legal guardian are dead. So you have no legal guardian. Though at the time, I had an auntie, uncle, and my sister, who were all older, come up and drive from Texas. But what they purposely did was they allowed my sister to come up. And when I was sitting in there, they said, he's not under arrest. Go get him something to eat. She left, and when she left to go try to get me something to eat, they interviewed me when nobody was there.
Wow.
Yes, and they literally would pull me in there, and they would say, listen, we know you did this. Tell us you did this, and you'll go home. Nothing will happen to you. But we've got to know the truth. If you lie to us, that means you're hiding something. Now, I have never, ever, in the beginning, ever denied what I did. I've always did that. I've always been told the truth, tell the truth, tell the truth, tell the truth. And I would tell the truth, but they would pick apart the things that they want. They would go away from the abuse. They would go away from everything. And they would tell me, you're in a small town. People are going to look down on this. When I first at the time, I had no representation. Even with my lawyer, and I would tell my lawyer certain things. He's supposed to be this, he represented Timothy McVeigh. While also going, at the end of my case, he took Timothy McVeigh's case. I don't know if y'all know who Timothy McVeigh is.
Yes, Oklahoma City bombing.
Look at him.
Yes, Oklahoma City bombing. So he literally turned his attention from me to Timothy McVeigh, because let me wrap this sentence up with you so that I can pursue this Timothy McVeigh thing. But I had nobody, literally nobody listening to me. And then when I talked to my lawyer, I would be like, well, what are we going to do for defense? And he was like, what is the defense? You're a black kid in a white town. He was like, you know how many people want to kill you?
And mind you, this is right around the same time as the OJ, the Menendez brothers, all this stuff is going on, to where nobody want to hear anything from a young black kid. Right. And then you had the rhetoric of super predators. You get what I'm saying? That these kids cannot be rehabilitated in no sense. They have depraved hearts and mind, all this crazy stuff. You know what I mean? This madness. So basically, it just washed him up, railroaded him and washed him, and did him like it did so many others.
On the money. Super predator. That's exactly the terminology that they use, because in the 90s, the thing is, we have all these youth who are catching these cases. Right, and they're super predators. And they called us super predators because, and I never knew this until as I got older, I would have conversations with people, and people would say, well, and this is how a lot of people look at it. If you were killed at 16, oh my God, what would you do at 30? What would you do at 20? Because the average person doesn't be around guns. They don't think about anything. So they're like, oh, instead of saying, what caused this kid to do this? Normal kids don't do things like this. Instead of them asking those questions, their assumptions more or less was, you have to be a super predator. These are kids that are coming out now, and these are super predators who start killing at a young age. But now they finally have came up with a Supreme Court ruling saying that juveniles don't have the same frontal cortex, which is your ability to make decision making. Correct. Your decision making part of your brain. And they're scientifically now proven that juveniles react to things much differently. That it is a scientific fact that juveniles react to things differently. So
Correct.
because of this new ruling, I have had my case overturned, and I am still currently waiting to be resentenced, which has been a couple of years now. And the DA that is in there now, though they have sent a psychiatrist, their psychiatrist who never recommends anybody, but recommended me and saying that I could be released. Though
Wow.
I've only had 3 misconducts in 26 years. I haven't
Wow.
had one in over 14, 15 years.
That's
None of them
right.
have been violent. I completed over 22 programs. I have been to college. And they tell you that, okay, as a juvenile, you sentence these people according to what they have. If they've shown that they cannot be rehabilitated, then you could come back with life without parole. But they have to show that they cannot be rehabilitated. There's nothing in my jacket. There is nothing in my behavior over the 26 years that would make anybody believe that a 42-year-old man that has come this far cannot be rehabilitated. Yet I am still dealing with the same struggles that I was dealing with in '94 with a district attorney that doesn't even care enough for this. So when my lawyer asked him, like, what are we going to do? Can we just go ahead and agree to something? You know, they could potentially let him out one day. He said, no, I'm pursuing life without parole.
Oh, wow. So,
Yeah.
so you got your case overturned due to a youth offender law changing in Oklahoma. Or to be honest, that was a national, the one we were talking about earlier.
Miller versus Alabama was the first one, one of the first ones.
What's the first
After
one?
Brown versus Florida, then Miller versus Alabama, all those, that whole line of cases.
So, like, due to the changes that occurred in reform, we'll just say,
right.
Your case was overturned. You're now waiting to be basically resentenced, but this district attorney that you're going against is still wanting to pursue life without possibility.
Absolutely.
This is why, and I just want to bring this up. I feel like I wanted to interrupt you a little bit ago, but this is why the movement that is going on right now with Black Lives Matter, with the protests, with everything that's going on, needs to include the incarcerated population.
Criminal justice system, absolutely.
There are young Black and brown men who have been railroaded by the system, who are continuously railroaded by the system, and district attorneys, prosecutors have too much power. Too much power. And that's something that we're working on as an organization. We've been reaching out to a lot of top figures within Black Lives Matter because the criminal justice system is being overlooked, even though the criminal justice system is built off of systemic oppression. So I'm gonna let you continue, Donnino.
Absolutely, but I say that because you just sparked something in me. That is, we have conversations with her constantly, and we see the things that's going on. So we know, even from Rodney King, from way back then, when the very first one was recorded.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if we just go back to the 90s, we don't even have to go all the way back. But we just go back to the 90s. We see that technology is the reason why now this stuff is coming to the forefront.
Right.
Because now you're able and capable of seeing things that you wouldn't normally see. But the crazy thing is like the case that we just went through when he had his knee on his neck.
Mm-hmm.
And we make a lot of comments in here, and I said, bro, that is the beginning. See, people see the beginning, and it happened to be taped. I said, let's say that man made it out alive. Now, though you made it through the physical part of being arrested, here comes the part of incarceration.
Right.
So if they don't kill you before the arrest, they will kill you after the arrest by giving you such excessive time that there is no way that you can do it, or such excessive time that by the time you do it, you get out, and most men are getting out and having to stay with their daughters who may have been 5 years old when they came to prison,
That's
who
right.
is now 35 or 40 years old. And now I am a burden upon my child. You know, and so now my child, he never really got to know me because I was in prison all of this time. Whether it's dope charges, whether it's murder, now I have to come home and almost be a burden to this person. And I often tell people, when you become part of the system, it's like becoming a part of somebody putting their knee on your neck. There is nothing that you can do when you come to prison. And we already know that. A lot of African American people, a lot of brown people are incarcerated because they didn't have the money for a lawyer. They didn't have the money to bond out. And when you put somebody into a jail, like who in their right mind would ever agree to plead guilty to 2 first-degree murders? Why would you ever do that? But I'll tell you, it comes with putting somebody in jail. For a year and a half, I was in jail. I was not allowed to talk to anybody outside of my lawyer and the jailer because I was a juvenile. Now, take in mind, I wasn't convicted yet. So they still treated me like a juvenile, but would put me in an adult position. So whenever adults would try to talk to me, like, you can't talk to him, he's a juvenile. You know, so they didn't have a place for me. They wasn't even ready for a juvenile to be tried as an adult. So I did a year and a half in a city jail. I had emotional breakdowns. If you guys know, city jails aren't meant to hold people for excessive amount of time. It's meant to hold you for 3 or 4 days until they can take you to the county jail. You know, so they didn't have a juvenile facility. They threw me in the city jail, and I remained there for a year and a half. You know, and there was a lot of things that they did. And you get to the point to where you just want to go. You know, you don't have a TV, you don't have nothing. You read the same 5 books for a year straight. I used to read books backwards just for something to do. You know, you read dictionaries, you do all the things that you can do to entertain your mind, but also understand this, in being in that jail, not only is it difficult for an adult, but imagine being a 16-year-old kid whose all my family is in Texas, no one is residing here, and the only person I'm allowed to is the jailer and my lawyer. And so I'm sitting in here every single day. After about a year of being pushed into this cage, you're willing to do anything to get out. Just give me a piece of paper, I'll sign it, tell me what I need to say, and let me go. And you'll believe almost anything. I had a lawyer that told me, even when I did the guilty plea, that, oh, you're a juvenile. You'll be out for 10 years. I never comprehended that when they gave me life without parole, I would die in prison. I didn't comprehend that till years later. At the time, I couldn't even fathom what life sentence meant.
That's crazy.
So that was like the hardest thing in the world for me. And now you feel like this because now you see other people and you feel like, oh, okay, now you're seeing these guys get abused by the police. But it happens in prison every day. It happens in jail every day.
I want to kind of like rewind and go back to something that you've kind of run over as you've been talking, your family. So I know you said that your other family members lived in Texas. Your sister that also lived in the home with you and your parents also went through similar abusive issues with your parents. How is your relationship with your family today?
It's still good. It's still great. I don't know if you know, but like my grandmother, who is my mom's mom, ended up testifying on my behalf. They kind of shut her down too. And what was so crazy is she would call up here to see what my court date was. And my lawyer 2 times gave her false dates. So when I actually went to my hearing, which was supposed to be my sentencing hearing, which Dr. John R. Smith was supposed to testify in, the only reason she made it is because she came to Oklahoma 2 days earlier than she was supposed to and read in the newspaper that they were having the court date and appeared at the court date.
And then, Portia, you might question, I'm sure like a lot of other people, how the hell was this able to go on? You get what I'm saying? When you got so many different tiers of the legal system, right?
Correct.
But the thing is that state bureaucracy, which, you know what I'm saying, a lot of bunch of state actors pretty much protecting each other and protecting the interest of each other, know how to stop You get what I'm saying? His stuff from advancing, and then the lawyers know how to word it to where only the weak stuff get looked at, and all the strong stuff get overlooked. You know what I'm saying? Because the court is only going to review it under whatever pretense the lawyer pushes it, right?
Exactly.
So once he goes to the state courts, you get all this excitement thinking, okay, well, I got federal action afterwards. But then you got the AEDPA that came out following his case. Anti-Terrorism Effective Death Penalty Act came out behind Timothy McVeigh, the same guy who he said his lawyer was representing at the same time. Society was upset over that bombing so much that they didn't want Timothy McVeigh to sit on death row for 20-something years before they executed him. So they came out with the Anti-Terrorism Effective Death Penalty Act in 1996, which allowed you only 1 year, a statute of limitations to get to the federal courts. You get what I'm saying? And then not only that, the way it was written, you had to pretty much be skilled. You get what I'm saying?
To be able to go through.
You had to know how to spar professionally with magistrates and judges in order to even get your claims properly heard. So it was no more of a matter of the wording.
Person that's incarcerated has little chance.
You get what I'm saying? With
Absolutely.
your limited to no experience, right? And then they had this wording where it had to be unreasonable. You get what I'm saying?
Yep.
So basically, if the lower court's decision, with all this procedural stuff that they came with, if the lower court's decision was wrong, that didn't matter. Because if another judge, a federal judge, look at it and say, okay, well, I can understand why he made this mistake, you got no relief. You get what I'm saying? But, it's wrong. So it's not a matter of whether or not it was wrong. It became as to whether or not I can understand the error that the lower courts made.
And how it happened. Yes.
Right.
So they can still find a way to say that wrong is still all right, even though it's wrong.
Right. So this is how he got, he got caught up in all this, tangled in all this, this weave of madness, political madness and drama, that so many people still suffer from, to this day.
But, even with that, and that is how he just broke that down, just shows you the wisdom that comes with being in the criminal justice system itself. Like, what is their excuse today? You know what I mean? What is your excuse today?
That thing's been exhausted, that it's already been presented to the courts, that they've already looked at it. You know what I'm saying? So in their mind, if it went through all these channels already, then it must not be that much of an injustice. You get what I'm saying? But it's tweaked up and it's adjusted to the point where it's laid out to where you don't get that kind of action. Right. You know what I'm saying? If you're this type of person.
Right.
And most of the time you're just, young and minority. You know what I mean?
So absolutely the truth in his conviction. It's not that they want anything outside of a conviction. They don't care about doing. That's why we have, when they say reform, justice reform. Justice reform is absolutely finding out what is best for the victim, the family, and even the inmate. So what they do is they bring people together, they talk to people, they see where people have been, and they actually look into the case to see the reasons why this action occurred. Because a lot of times they don't care why you killed, they only care that you killed. And whatever reason that is, they don't care about, they don't listen to. So even like now, when talking to the district attorney or trying to get, it's the conviction part. If you're truly looking at what is best for justice, then you could go to the victim's family. You could talk to my sister. You could talk to my grandmother. You can talk to my uncles. And every one of them will tell you he should get out of prison. My grandmother is 91 years old. And my grandmother will tell you this day, I love my grandson. And my grandson should have been freed years ago. So if you're doing what is best for the victim's family, what is best for society, if you're actually looking to those things, then you would see, one, I'm not a threat to society, and two, I have no opposing people on me getting out. But he hasn't even taken those steps. I've had my family contact him, both biological and adopted, and he'd tell them, oh, yeah, I'll meet with you, I'll talk to you. Take in mind, this was over a year ago. Still hasn't made one phone call or attempt to talk to either side.
So I want to ask you, through doing this this interview with us, what do you want to gain from it? I know you want to raise awareness. I know you want people to know your story and the injustices that happened to you and that are still happening to you. But what can we as the organization and then also the viewers do to help you?
Really, I just want, and it's crazy, but I just want for my side to have been heard. Something that I didn't get 26 years ago. I want for people to understand that people that commit these crimes, the people that commit crimes, the majority of people that commit crimes have reasons why they do it. And you may not agree with the reason, and you may not always understand the reason. Because the hardest thing for me, even in the black community now, is to when you talk to other people and they be like, "Hey, what are you in prison for?" And you introduce yourself, or you get past everything and you talk and you say it. Most people will look at you with disgust because it's only natural to compare my parents to your parents. Even if you don't know that you do it, when you think about it, you like, I can't imagine my dad or my mom or my, because you grew up completely different. And I tell people that most people that do things have a reason to do them. So look at the reason to things. You have to understand what made somebody do something if you are truly trying to understand the crime. But I feel like I have screamed for years and years and no one has listened. And I'm like, look, I don't justify anything, but I'm saying that if you tell me at 16 years old, I'm not mature enough to rent a hotel room, I'm not mature enough to vote for the president of the United States, I'm not mature enough to buy a pack of cigarettes because I don't truly understand how it could hurt my body because I'm not mature enough, then how can I be mature enough to make a decision to cost me the rest of my life? I truly understand prison and why you would put me here. The hardest thing for me to understand is after almost 30 years, why would you keep me here? Or not at least give me a chance to do whatever I need to do to either earn freedom or give me a good chance to have a shot at freedom. And I don't understand that. And you got to think when you come in, and when I came into prison, you couldn't get programs because if you had a life or a life without, why would we give you college? Why would we give you VOTEX? You're never going to get in prison. You know how I got 22 programs? Because I would sit in prison at 18 years old, 19 years old, and I would write 50 requests to staff to get in this thinking for a change. I would write it so much so that they get so tired of me that they all the squeaky wheel. That they would allow me now to take this VOTEX. So now I got this VOTEX. So once I learned that that worked and you just can't stop, I started writing request after request after request. Let me get in the dog program. Request after request after request. And I'm like, a child that had absolutely nothing in the world to gain still educated himself, still tried to make the best possible life he can, but tried to show the world that a 42-year-old man is completely different from a 16-year-old child. And I went from one abusive situation to the next because when you come to prison and you're young, if you don't think that you will be abused, if you don't think that you will be picked on, if you don't think that you'll be taken advantage of, you're completely wrong. So at least the beatings at home I got came from somebody that raised me. Because now that I'm in prison, the beatings that I pursued came from people who just took advantage of me.
Right.
So in my life and in my mind, I started to believe that this is just what life was. I accepted it and rolled on it. It's been times like that night, I put the gun to my head and I pulled the trigger. To this day, Portia, I don't understand why that gun didn't go off. And I often tell my wife that, and it hurts her. And I said, I've sit in prison sometimes, and I wish that that gun would have went off. Maybe they would still be alive, I would be dead, and everything would be okay. You know, and many people will tell you that you survived for a reason, but how do you find a reason with such darkness? You know what I mean?
There's definitely purpose there, and I truly, truly believe, even with the dark portions of your life, that God always has a plan, and so you always keep faith in that, and knowing that if it was meant for you or for that gun to have went off, it would have. And since it did not, then there's clearly still purpose for you here on earth, whether it is in a prison or out of a prison. There's something that God is keeping you here to do.
Absolutely, Nino. I agree, man. Just keep your head up, man. Stay faith driven, stay purpose driven, man. And I think all this thing is about to unfold for you. It's a lot going on right now. I'm sure you're aware of it.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, just stay hopeful, man. It took a long time for me. You know what I mean? Little do you know, my situation was similar, man. I don't want to go too far up into it because me and Portia gonna do something, you know, probably later on some other time. You know what I mean? But I served almost 24. You know what I mean? Only been out 2.5, bro. Went in 16, same time you did, the whole of everything. I'll be 42 in less than a week. So this how much your story impacted me. This how close we are.
That's right. So you know.
Yeah, definitely.
Trust me, I know.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's all I wanted was a voice, man, and y'all gave that to me. I thank you for that.
And we gonna share your voice with the world. I mean, we gonna share, and push. And
no doubt.
I appreciate you, you know, being transparent with us, especially Mary. I know that you got emotional. It was hard for you to read that letter. This is your husband, so I know that as he goes through this fight, you go through the fight. I've been in your seat as a wife of someone who's formerly incarcerated, so I know that their tears are our tears, and you guys have an ally in FTIO. We are pushing and fighting, and any awareness that you need us to spread, you let us know. And sometimes it helps a little bit, you know, for an organization to, you know, write a little bit of letter, something saying that, you know, you're supported out here. So you let us know what we can do, and we will stay in touch.
Thank you.
Do you want to say anything in closing?
Hey, likewise, man.
Just don't forget about me, man. Black Lives Matter.
Hey,
even the lives that's incarcerated.
Hey, don't even trip. Your story, I mean, it's very compelling.
All right.
I'll be at you.
Thank you, man.
No doubt.
I think that your story is going to take the same effect that it has taken on Purpose and on me. I think it's going to have on viewers, and I think that you'll have a lot more reach than probably, you know, than I or you expect. So let's make it happen.
All right, that's right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Right.